Long ago, in a country called Persia, lived a girl named Esther. She was an orphan, which means her mum and dad had died, and she was raised by her uncle, who was kind and whose name was Mordecai. She grew up to be a beautiful young woman who was kind and caring. Now, one day, the king of Persia became so angry with the queen that he took away her crown and said, "You can be queen no more." Now, King Xerxes wasn't very happy for long without a queen, so he decided to find a new one. So he asked all his advisors and workers to go throughout the country looking for a kind, beautiful, caring woman. Sooner or later, the king's workers saw Esther. And Esther was beautiful, caring, compassionate, and kind. Just what the king was looking for. In no time at all, Esther was married to the king. Now, Esther was a Jew, and the Jews had been driven out of Israel, their home, about 70 years before and taken to Persia. Many people didn't like the Jews. Esther's uncle Mordecai was the leader of the Jews. Mordecai encouraged Esther not to tell the king and his advisors that she was Jewish and followed God because she might be treated badly. Mordecai spent his time near the palace so that he could hear news of Esther. One day, he overheard two men plotting to kill King Xerxes. So he sent a secret message to the palace which saved the king's life. And Mordecai's name was written in the king's special book of records. Second in command to the king was a rich man called Haman, who was very powerful and very big-headed. He thought he was better than everybody else. He was so big-headed that he thought that everybody should bow down to him. But Mordecai refused to do that. Haman was really angry. He knew that Mordecai was a Jew, and so he did something terrible. He asked the king to make a law to kill all the Jews. And so that law was made that on the 13th day of Adar next year, all the Jews were to be killed. Everyone in the land. There would be no place to run and no place to hide. Mordecai, having found out about Haman's evil plans, was worried and afraid. He sent Esther a message. He told her what Haman was plotting and asked her to go in to see the king on the Jews' behalf. Now in Persia, no one could go and see the king without being asked. Otherwise, they could be punished severely. Esther was afraid. She hadn't been allowed to see the king for a month. So she fasted and prayed for 3 days, building up her courage, and then went to see the king. What do you think would happen? King Xerxes was really pleased to see her. So pleased to see her, in fact, that he said, "I will give you anything you want, up to half your kingdom. Half my kingdom, rather." God gave Esther a clever idea. And Esther said, "Let the king and Haman come tomorrow to a banquet that I will prepare for them. Then I will let the king know what I would like him to do for me." The king agreed, and of course Haman thought it was brilliant that he'd been invited to eat with the king and the queen. On leaving the palace, Haman saw Mordecai at the king's gate. Mordecai refused to bow down to him. Haman was filled with rage. He was so angry that he wanted to kill Mordecai, and he decided to speak to the king the next morning about that. Well, that same night, the king couldn't sleep. So he ordered the book of records to be brought and read to him. Now Xerxes read the part about the day that Mordecai had saved his life by finding out about a plot to kill him. The king wanted to reward Mordecai, and so he thought about that and made a plan. The next day, when Haman arrived, before he could say anything to the king about killing Mordecai, King Xerxes told Haman to dress Mordecai in royal robes and lead him through the city streets on the king's horse, shouting, "This is what the king does for the man he wants to honour." Imagine how angry Haman was about this, but he had to do it. Later, at the banquet, Esther shared the secret that she was a Jew and believed in God. She begged the king to spare her people, and she told him about Haman's evil plan. The king was furious with Haman and said, "Get rid of him! I never want to see him again." And a new law was passed to keep the Jews safe. Mordecai became second in command to the king, taking Haman's place. And even today, 2,500 years later, Jews still remember and celebrate how God saved them through Esther, a brave orphan girl who became queen. This celebration is called Purim and happens every year. Well, there are 5 quick things that we can learn from Esther's story. Number 1, God has a plan for our lives. Even when bad things happen, think of Esther. She didn't want her parents to die, but God still had a plan. Number 2, people around you and people around me matter. King Xerxes had Esther. Esther had Mordecai. We can help each other. We can help our friends and our families and our neighbours. Number 3, God is in charge. Things look bad for Esther and the Jews, but God had an amazing plan to rescue them. Sometimes things are hard for us. It's hard at the moment with the coronavirus. But God is with us and has promised to help us come through our problems. We can ask him for help. Number 4, God is always working behind the scenes. Did you know that God's name is never mentioned in the book of Esther? Not once. Yet God is working unseen. God was with Esther when she lost her parents and when she was raised by her wise uncle. It wasn't just chance that Esther was beautiful or that she was a Jew. God was at work behind the scenes. And number 5, God has placed us where we are for a reason. Probably the most popular verse in Esther says, "Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this." God loves you, and wherever God has placed you is exactly where he wants you for this time. Now, there is going to be an outdoor family quiz, which will be put up around the church car park. Can I remind you not to touch any of the clues or go in if another family are already there? It's going to be quite a while to do it, so I don't think you'll be bumping into other people. There's going to be some prizes, so don't forget to have a look at the quiz in the car park. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the story and hope to see you soon. God bless. Bye.